that was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed.
When Melinda Verga walked into the workroom of Canada's Drag Race Season 4, there was a palpable shift that was felt throughout the universe. There was no denying it. The world of drag was not going to be the same after what we'd go on to learn about this queen that had the odds stacked against her. You might be thinking, oh, Green Gay's just exaggerating. Well, let me just remind you that this is a serious matter. So whether you're a longtime Melinda fan or someone that just wants to learn about her star power, sit back and enjoy why it is that you can't clone a Melinda Verga. But before we start, please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as we're almost at 100k. Follow me on Twitter at GreenGayYT and follow my brand new Instagram and TikTok at itsGreenGay. Now let's begin. Whenever a new cast of queens is released, the fanbase tends to particularly obsess over one of the given contestants. This creates an online traction that in some cases subsequently creates a hive mind mentality where everyone is just constantly praising someone as being this amazing artist, when really they're just doing fine and isn't much different than the other queens that we've gotten to see over the years. That being said, in the case of Melinda Verga, there was a lot of other variables that came into play with why she would inevitably turn into such a sensation. Because hear me out, maybe Melinda wasn't the best when it came to showcasing her makeup skills, or maybe sometimes her wigs had crunchy hairlines, or how some of her outfits weren't very polished. Yet it's even though she had these weak areas, the other things she delivered to the production of the episodes is what created a new meaning and appreciation for her presence on the season. Essentially, there was a long road ahead of Melinda being liked by the fans. Keep in mind that when Canada's Drag Race Season 4 released their promos on October 18th, 2023, Melinda was not among the queens getting showered with love and attention. In fact, her promo outfit, while not bad, would definitely get more visually appealing the more time passed by. Regardless, as I mentioned before, Melinda had the odds stacked against her, but unbeknownst to her, there was an aspect within the competition that would help her redeem herself in the eyes of viewers. When it came to how season 4 was playing out, while there was a lot of really talented queens, what kind of fell flat tended to be the lack of suspense, or I guess tension, between the queens. It just looked like a group of friends having fun with each other. In that same respect, when there was a reason for some queens to be upset, we've seen how a lot of the time they choose to bottle up their feelings rather than letting the cameras know the truth. In Melinda Verga's case, she was not like the other girls. Maybe it was that she was such a seasoned queen, or that she happens to have a personality where she doesn't really care that much about what some of her decisions would look like to the general audience. The first episode of Canada Season 4, production ended up going a different route by introducing this new format where they treated the entrances as the unofficial first runway showcase. This means that instead of all the queens getting to meet each other one by one, they instead each entered the workroom, posed with their outfit, and left, all while unknowingly being judged by the three main judges, Brooklyn Heights, Brad Goreski from the Real Friends of WeHo, and Tracy Melshore. When Melinda Verga walks in, we see her wearing a pride theme outfit covered in rainbows from head to toe. I'm not gonna lie, given that at the beginning of the season we don't really have much to judge the queens on, I sort of assumed based on this entrance look that she'd be the first queen to be eliminated. But little did I know she would go on to be much more than just that. Another important factor that non-Canadians may not know about Melinda's story is that she's from Edmonton, Alberta, which isn't exactly the most popular city in Canada. In fact, it kind of has a reputation of just being very small with not much to do. Regardless, she was the first queen to represent Edmonton on Drag Race. So as a viewer, given that Canada's Drag Race seasons tend to be mostly comprised of Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver queens, to see some of the other less popular cities get recognition was cool to see. So yes, Melinda was the underdog of the season. This was clear from the moment we first meet her, but this would all end up working in her favor. Melinda exuded nothing but confidence every minute she was on screen, and we've seen how sometimes you can be a really good drag queen but lack the ability to properly represent yourself on TV. What's more is that there was something charming about the way that Melinda described herself and the perspective that she had on the competition. Within Edmonton, Alberta, she was known in the scene as being one of the stunty queens that was bringing the energy to the stage. Essentially, Kennedy Davenport may be the dancing diva of Texas, but Melinda Verga is the dancing diva of Edmonton, Alberta. The theme behind the episode episode was that it was a premiere ball, so the queens were judged on 3 looks. The first was their entrance, the second was the mini challenge, and the last would be the runway. While Melinda's look for the mini challenge wasn't that bad considering she actually exuded really great stage presence, it did not help that once the runway started, we saw looks like that of Kiki Ko that literally designed and made the outfit that you see here, which made it hard to argue for why Melinda should win when she walked out in this. The judges would go on to not like the look, criticizing her makeup skills, the choice of hair, and the dress. Many would consider this to be a really terrible start for a queen in the competition. Yet, I can pinpoint the exact moment that I realized there was something special about this queen. When she's about to get critiques from the judges, Brooklyn calls her name, and Melinda responds with a simple hello, asking the judges what's good.
Stop, Melinda Verga.
Hi! What's good, judges?
Oh, she's spicy. Hi.
The reason this is a significant moment is because usually you'd expect a queen that was standing next to such extravagant outfits to maybe be second guessing herself. But just when you thought she was feeling down about possibly being in the bottom, she responded with a radiant positive energy that was sugar coated by a very clear amount of confidence. Essentially, this queen clearly had nerve. And even though according to the judges, she had one of the worst 3 looks of the whole cast, it was just an area of her drag that would need a little bit of improvement. Although to be fair, the judges did go in on Melinda with their critiques. Brooklyn calls her drag style pedestrian, and then for an introduction to the world, they expected a lot more, adding that her final runway was way too simple, with her top lashes being way too heavy, and just overall proceeding to explain to Melinda the way HD cameras work. Yet one of the only positive critiques she gets is from Brad Goreski from the Real Friends of WeHo, and he points out that even though Melinda did bad on the ball challenge, the way she was exuding charisma with her personality while on the main stage was making them notice that there was a lot more to her than just crunchy looks. What's more is that this critique in a way sort of foreshadowed why Melinda would end up lasting so long in the season. For instance, on the other hand, we had Kiki Ko, who delivered such amazing looks that many thought she was going to be the winner of the season. But unfortunately, she wasn't able to display her personality in a way that would make people want to root for her. So she ended up going home pretty early on. Melinda explains that she's very hurt by the judges' negative reaction to her drag because she put a lot of effort into putting it together, which is followed by Venus bringing up that behind the scenes, Melinda was actually going through it and was really emotionally distraught. Apparently, the reason why Melinda had chosen to walk into the workroom in a rainbow jumpsuit was because she wanted to come in wearing something happy and colorful. After this, she then has an emotional breakdown that also made her makeup look more cunty. By the end of the episode, Brooklyn announces that there will be no elimination, creating peace and serenity among the queens, while Melinda Verga and CC Superstar, who were the bottom 2 of the week, survived for at least one more episode. Going into week 2, all eyes were now on Melinda because she was to many contestants the queen that had performed the worst in the competition so far. But Melinda walks into the workroom by doing a cartwheel out of drag. Now, this cartwheel is actually very symbolic because it represents the way that things would play out for her in the weeks ahead. It wasn't going to be a straightforward path, and instead she was literally going to have a lot of ups and downs. For the main challenge, she was paired with Kit and Kabuto for an improv-based sketch. If you didn't watch this season, this ends up being one of the worst episodes because pretty much most of the queens did not do good in the challenge. It was very clear that since it was just episode 2, a lot of the queens weren't comfortable enough with being on set, making it harder for them to succeed in an improv challenge where you really need to feel confident going into it. Otherwise, we get a lot of what we saw, which was either queens being super quiet or really forced jokes that nobody finds funny. Despite this, Melinda actually does a great job in the improv challenge, having great chemistry with Kitten. By this point, most of the audience had gotten used to seeing her makeup and lace fronts, so it became easier to focus on the talent she was displaying and how she was commanding the room and feeding off the energy that Kitten was giving her. When it came to the main stage, not all the girls were serving it on the runway like Melinda. You could see the vision she was trying to invoke even if they weren't necessarily the most polished. Particularly the runway she did on episode 3 for the Sunglasses at Night theme, where she wore this face shield as an avant-garde look, referencing the Sunglasses at Night music video. But best part of all, she takes them off only to reveal a hard lace front. One of the more pivotal moments for Melinda's storyline happens on episode 4. The queens had to do a sewing/design challenge by taking materials from out of the closet and making a winning look out of it. There's a moment where we see the way Melinda's mind behaves and the things she does for inspiration. Like, I can just imagine her sitting alone in a dark room, and it's within that darkness that she came up with her entrance performance look. So Melinda was actually very confident going into the design challenge because she was gonna create a look that was reminiscent of Vivienne Westwood fashion, even pointing out in the workroom that it's sort of shocking that thus far, the judges haven't really liked her drag style, since according to her, nobody has ever questioned her taste level at any point in her life. Regardless, she made sure to let everyone know that she's competing to receive critiques from the best of the best, and will take their feedback as the constructive criticism that it is. Yet by the end of the week, all that energy would soon come to a boil. When it came to making this Vivienne Westwood inspired garment, Melinda truly thought that she was going to be in the top that episode. So when the judges got to her only to start rating her to filth, you can see her face crack, as it dawned on her that the judges did not like her look, telling her that it wasn't transformative enough from the original material she used, coming across as simple, and that even though she put in the effort, they need to actually see the results from it. As Brooklyn continued critiquing the other girls down the line, Melinda's blood was slowly boiling. How dare they? How dare those judges come for her in such a way? But at last she had to just breathe and remain calm. The bottom three for the episode was comprised of Melinda Verga, Amy Yonsei Chanel, and Neera Enough. When in Untucked, Neera was the first to point out that she should be the one to be saved by the Golden Beaver because she hasn't been doing as bad as the other queens, along with her drag being a lot more polished than them, especially Melinda's. Melinda had also been in the bottom twice already, so it felt to a lot of them that she was the weakest link of the group. Now, here's where things get spicy. Kiki Ko, the winner of the challenge, asked Melinda, quote, "So why should I save you?" To which Melinda replies, "I don't think you should save me." That really shakes up the room because it's not often that you hear a queen say that, especially so nonchalantly. Melinda explains that she's reached the limit emotionally and that she isn't done, pointing out that she doesn't really want the crown as much as she did when she first walked into the workroom, and that she's, quote, tired of being a punching bag every week for the judges to tear apart, because since according to them her looks are not runway worthy, then her efforts are never going to be enough. At this point, she then goes into a rant about why her outfit for the week was actually amazingly constructed, followed by her getting up and straight up leaving the workroom, saying under her breath that she's not trying to be disrespectful. At this point, as a viewer, I really thought that Melinda was about to straight up quit the show, but luckily she walks back into the room. The reason I consider Canada's Drag Race Season 4 Episode 4 one of the best episodes of all the franchises that exist is because from a viewer perspective, it really was a roller coaster in terms of what we saw transpire. There was so many rivalries among the queens, and you could really feel some of the pain that these queens were going through. But the cherry on top was that Neera sort of gets an attitude and says that Kiki should save her because if you compare her look to Amy's look, hers is clearly better, which then makes Amy pissed and they start arguing, resulting in Neera telling Amy that she can send her home in a lip sync. So Amy tells Kiki, quote, "Save Melinda and let's do a show," which was a gag. Like straight up, if you haven't seen this season, just watch this episode cause you won't regret it. Shockingly, by the end of the episode, Kiki ends up saving Melinda Verga, despite the fact that Melinda had given up in Untucked. This drama bridges into the beginning of episode 5. Once all the queens walk back into the room, most of them were really pissed at the outcome of nobody going home, and also at Melinda Verga's behavior in Untucked. Denim calls this out, and Melinda then erupts, scolding the rest of the queens for questioning whether or not she still wants to compete, just because she happened to be upset. But that thanks to Kiki Ko saving her, she realizes now that her presence means a lot more than just herself, because she doesn't want to let people down. Venus tells her that she can't ever say that she wants to quit the show again, but Melinda yells at her, saying that she can say whatever she wants because she'll face the consequences head down. It's actually astonishing because she just keeps yelling, and the more she yells, the more teeth we see, culminating in her getting up, hitting the table, and walking out of the workroom for a second time within the span of a couple hours. After Melinda inevitably walks back in, she reaffirms to everyone that they shouldn't question whether or not she wants to be in the competition just because she said an hour ago that she didn't want to be in the competition. I do wonder what was going through the other queen's mind. There must have been a sense of feeling impressed by just how unhinged Melinda was behaving. Maybe it even inspired some of them to act even more dramatic in front of the camera. I'm not sure if I remember correctly, but I think I heard Venus, the queen that would go on to win the season, that the moment she saw Melinda's tantrum about the judges' critiques happening once again, she knew right away that it was going to be making the final edit, which is why she made sure to interact with Melinda by yelling at her to calm down, so she'd assure herself a spot in one of the most memorable parts of the season, which is exactly the way it came across on TV. It quickly became the Melinda Verga show. The queens knew it, the viewers knew it, it, and all that anyone was hoping for was that Melinda would realize it too and get herself into that finale. On episode 5, we get to the Snatch Game, and it would go on to be the best moment for Melinda's trajectory because she ends up winning the challenge. Her Snatch Game performance was Manny Pacquiao, a wrestler from the Philippines, and it was by a landslide the best Snatch Game of the whole group. Plus, on the runway, she comes out in probably her best look of the season thus far. The outfit was cute, the makeup had improved a lot, and even the wig matched everything correctly. It's great that the judges like Brooklyn Heights were able to see the potential that was oozing out of Melinda's Verga. It could have been the biggest missed opportunity had she ended up going home early, and she proved to future contestants that you don't need to have the best makeup skills to make it far in a competition. What's more is that now that she had won her first challenge, she was officially one of the frontrunners. And out of the bottom 3, she chooses to save Kiki Ko because Kiki had saved her the week prior, even though the group consensus was that Kiki should be the one to lip sync because she had the worst track record of the bottom. On episode 6, they had the first ever lip sync smackdown to happen on the Canadian franchise. For the first round, Melinda ends up performing against Kid and Caboodle to That Don't Impress Me Much by Shania Twain. Being that Melinda is from Edmonton, Alberta, which is basically the Wild West of Canada, I sort of expected her to have the edge with the song. And indeed she did, because she wins and makes it to the next round. For the semi-final round, Melinda was up against Aurora Matrix, and they got The Boys Wanna Be Here by Peaches. Yet Melinda would end up losing the lip sync, but we did get her doing the little Sasha Colby ponytail move, cementing herself as the Sasha Colby of Canada. Now, there's a lot of memorable things that Melinda Verga goes on to do this season, but my favorite thing of all was the performance she did with her character she got on the Rusical for episode 7. Something about seeing her looking like she dressed up as a Halloween version of Megan the Robot as she gives us this high energy dance number just feels so mesmerizing. And clearly the judges would agree, since they would end up giving her a lot of positive critiques along with loving her runway look, thus creating a very positive trajectory for her in the competition. Unfortunately, the last challenge that we would get to see Melinda participate in happens on episode 8. This was the makeover, which is one of my least favorite challenges because I just have a hard time finding makeover episodes entertaining. Each of the queens got paired with someone that was really close to them. Melinda got her partner Scott. Their backstory is actually really romantic because they met at a bathhouse, but afterwards they developed such a close bond. What makes this reunion between them even more meaningful was that shortly before leaving to film the season, Scott ended up having a stroke, so it made Melinda feel guilty for leaving him behind to pursue her dreams. Regardless, they were in it together, and all of the queens had to make over their partner as best they could. The judging of this episode to me was the weirdest of the whole season. Denim ends up winning the challenge, which rightfully so, yet I thought that if she didn't win, that it for sure would have gone to Aurora Matrix. But based on what they show, the judges actually had Venus in second place for the challenge, meaning that the bottom 3 was comprised of Aurora Matrix, Near Enough, and Melinda Verga. I truly think that Melinda should have been saved, and the bottom 2 could have just been Near Enough against Aurora Matrix or Venus. Regardless, the bottom 2 ended up being Neera versus Melinda. They lip-synced to I Didn't Just Come Here to Dance by Carly Rae Jepsen. To me, Melinda slaughtered this lip sync. She gave us energy, she gave us passion, she gave us layers, and she did it all while wearing that silver dress. But unfortunately, the judges just didn't see the vision, and it was announced that Near Enough had won, which meant that Melinda Verga had officially been eliminated from the season, placing 5th. I'm not really sure what the reasoning was behind the judges not wanting Melinda Verga to make it into the top 4 of the season, since she really had everything going for her. She was a queen that represented a very small drag community, outmatched by her competitors when it came to their drag package, but ended up bulldozing them when it came to displaying not just an overwhelming amount of charisma, but also a great amount of nerve. People forget that Melinda wasn't just this funny personality that was saying quirky things for no reason. She was also a fearless individual that really did not care about what any of the other queens thought about her, or what production might think about her randomly exiting the set whenever she felt annoyed by the circumstances of the competition. Needless to say, it's no surprise that she'd go on to be one of the most remembered queens of the Canadian franchise. In retrospect, Melinda is extremely grateful for the way that things ended up panning out for her. She came in as an underdog queen from one of the smaller gay communities in the country, had a really rough start, but managed to become one of the main characters throughout the episode, ultimately landing her into the top 5 of the season. Regardless, after the season aired, Melinda Verga's journey has been that of touring all around the world, and it's been nothing but beautiful to watch. We've also seen how she's drastically improved her makeup skills, and anytime she's posted a sickening look, it makes me even more excited for the prospects of seeing her return. But that brings the question, if Melinda Verga were to come back to an all-star season, do you think she'd succeed more on Canada versus the world? Or should we have her be part of a Rupaul hosted season to show Ru what a true Alberta drag queen is like? It's been heavily rumored that at the time I make this video, Melinda Verga is part of the cast of the second season season of the Traitors Canada, which is going to create some really funny moments. Because if you didn't know, the format of Traitors is basically about getting a group of people where 3 of them are traitors, and the group has to find out who the traitor is before everyone in the cast ends up getting murdered / eliminated every week. So it's a game about accusing others based on nothing more than your gut feeling. And best believe that Melinda is not about to be taking any nonsense from any of those other D-list Canadian celebrities. Most of the time, the queens that compete on any Drag Race season hope that they can develop a fan base out of it. In the case of Melinda, there was something so real about the way she behaved that all of a sudden, you didn't care that maybe she wasn't the most polished. It reminded viewers that the art of drag is meant to be entertaining, to sell us a fantasy. And that's what she was managing to do, even if it came out of the expense of not agreeing with the judges on how she was doing in the challenges. But one thing for sure, if Melinda Verga continues in this trajectory of success, she will definitely become the heir to Rupaul's empire. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons. In the Pink Squad, we have Matthew Burns, Gay Uncle, Poppers Alberta, Sari Tish, Natasha De Leon, Las Potitas, and Cool Gal Nan. And in the Green Squad, we have Azure, Cayman Rider Furry, Edgar Allan Pup, The Only Sean, IJS, Not a Punch But a Geek, Jack Beck, Aaron W, Captain Chaos, Bashir with the good beard, Galeria Gomez, Dea, Sarah G, Scarlet Rose, Boiled Peanut, Kimberly Marin, Max Whale, and our newest member, Olivia Marr. If you'd like to see your name on the screen, you can support me on Patreon. The link will be in the description. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, like this video, and comment below what you thought about it. And I'll see you guys next time.